Eric Stanton Betts, welcome to Cultural Attaché.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Good. You are starring in Larissa Fasthorse's Fake It Till You Make It at the Mark Taper Forum in Los Angeles. So I want to ask you first and foremost, what stands out to you most about this play in terms of the themes that most resonate with you personally?
I think, for me, I'm part Cherokee Indian, and I grew up in a very white suburban neighborhood. So it's offered me a lot of opportunity to kind of rediscover a bit of my heritage that I haven't had access to most of my life. And I think what's really interesting is that this show is built around Native people and Native culture, but it's got themes of identity and authenticity that anyone can relate to. And I think in a world full of social media where we're always seeing the best of everyone's lives, it's hard to kind of figure out exactly if you're on the right path or if you're doing what you're meant to be doing. And I think this show kind of offers the opportunity to open a conversation about, who's out there doing things for themselves, who's out there being altruistic, who's out there trying to help others, and are you doing it from a place of authenticity, or are you doing it just to gain something in the workplace or in the world around you? And I think that's really exciting, a really exciting conversation to have. And I think it's really cool that it's being sparked by a Native playwright and through the lens of Native people, because I feel like through all of history, Native people have always remained true to the earth and true to their lands and true to themselves. And we've seen a lot of other people coming in and taking over and doing things to only benefit themselves without regard for Native people. So it's kind of great to see Native people host this conversation.
It's also somewhat naive to think that Native people don't also have the same human fallibilities that we all do, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
um, that this is that the it when you discuss the themes of the play as you just did, it sounds like it could be a bit didactic. That we're getting a morality play sort of vomited up on us, but this is all housed in a farcical comedy.
Yeah.
What surprises you most about the way Larissa Fasthorse has been able to put her message in this sort of, I guess, unexpected form?
I love what you said about kind of a moral like throw up at the audience, because I think oftentimes when you see certain pieces of work and the audience goes in feeling like they're being taught a lesson, that they can kind of tune out or almost be offended by the work that they're seeing and then not enjoy it or not want to share it with others or whatnot. And I really don't feel like this is the case with Fake It Until You Make It, because you've got these characters, these native characters who, Winona, for example, she kind of is the protagonist and the antagonist all wrapped into one. And, some people are like, they don't really like her. She's like kind of the leading force of the show, and some people don't really like her. So it's almost like, she's not there preaching to the audience to do the right thing and be a good person. Um, Constantly, while she's also kind of making a ton of mistakes, very obvious mistakes. And it offers, I think, the audience to be like, hold on a second, like, you have good intentions, but you're doing this the wrong way. So what are we meant to believe? And each character has their own motivation throughout the show, but the audience kind of gets to decide, and I think harbor that discussion on whether or not they think that they're doing this right or wrong. It's just kind of this cool like dichotomy of intention versus character and result. And I don't feel like I hope that the audience comes in mostly and they laugh, they have a good time, they laugh at the absurdity, they laugh at the discomfort, and then, once it settles in them, they can be like, I did laugh at that, but why did I laugh at that? And then it can start to, fuel some of those conversations and hopefully feel some change too.
Well, you brought up the idea the audience doesn't know what to believe. What are we meant to believe? Is
You
is
know,
there anyone we're supposed to believe?
I think you can believe Mark, my character. Mark's in it for he's in it for all the good reasons. um,
Yes, but he's not quite fully honest either.
Totally. Yeah, he's got some other small intentions in there, but um, I think it's the kind of thing where you kind of have to go in and take the bits and pieces that you can maybe ascribe to your own life or you can understand, and then you have to kind of leave the rest. And that's kind of a philosophy that I have with a lot of things. You know, you kind of find what works for you, and then you dismiss the rest. And as long as you know the things that work for you aren't the worst qualities of the story, then hopefully you're able to cultivate some meaning and some worth out of the show that you experience.
Now, on opening night at the party across the way, I heard that there were new pages given to you all on Friday and Saturday before opening, and that there were even new pages given to you at the beginning of the week just before opening. What are the challenges of getting so many new pages that close to your opening night?
It is such a fascinating process. I've done a lot of plays, a lot of musicals, and I've only done a few from the ground up like this. And in LA, you know, we aren't often offered the budget and the time to have so many previews. So in previous performances that I've done, a preview is maybe one or two nights, and it's sort of just to get those audience jitters out of your system before opening night happens. But in this case, and in the case in New York, if you're doing a Broadway show, they often have previews for maybe months at a time. And they're constantly implementing changes to the show leading up to opening night. And by opening night, you hope that it's a locked show, and that's what's going to happen. But I've even seen changes from Broadway to national tours, you know, depending on budgets and casting and things that they find worthwhile when it goes from, you know, the main stage in New York to going out on the road. But in this case, yeah, we were working on this show all of January. We had our first preview at the end of the month, leading up to opening night, which was February 5th. And you're right, we were getting new pages up until the very last day. And it was that weekend before where we did a performance, a preview. It was like the second or third preview, and we're coming up to our dressing room. And we see Larissa Fasthorse, our playwright, walking down the hall. And we're heading into our dressing rooms, and she goes, "New scene one at your door, new scene one at your door." And we look down, and there's a whole new scene one sitting at our door. And lucky for me, I'm not too affected because I come into the show a little bit later in the play. So I didn't have to worry too much about it. But it was an entirely new scene. The original scene one was something around 22 pages. And this new scene one was because oftentimes we'll get a new page 16. A couple lines were changed, a line was added. Maybe they've added a little bit more dialogue than that, so they add a page 16A, and then it goes to page 17. But in this case, we scrapped all 22 pages of scene one and just had a new 16-page scene one. And there were some jokes and some pieces of dialogue that remained the same. I know a couple lines went to different people in the new scene, but otherwise, there was a lot of new dialogue to make it a little bit more zippy, to introduce the audience to that farce comedy nature a little bit sooner in the show than what we had been working with.
Well, as an actor, what do you learn about the creation of new works when you see all these changes and adjustments being made prior to your opening night?
It is a lesson in preparation. And, you know, coming in to a new project like this, even if you're going to get new pages every single day, if you are not completely prepared, I mean, being off book as possible, knowing the ins and outs of your character so greatly so that you, when you get a new page, and this happened a couple times actually, we got some new pages and we're reading through it as a company, and someone's like, "I'm sorry, but I don't think I would say something like this. I don't think that matches the rest of, you know, what I've been doing in this story." And then Larissa has to look at that and go, Oh, you're right. You're right. I kind of, I got, she goes, okay, yeah, let's change that. Or maybe someone else can say this line and then let's give you this line to get you back into that mode of your character. And so it's important. I mean, as the actor, we should know the character better than anyone. And sometimes you know it even a little bit better than the writer because the writer vocalizes the character, but you embody the character. So the physicality of the character comes from you. And of course, the director can help engage you and encourage you to move one way or another. But if you don't know your intentions and your super objective and all that, then all these new pages that you keep getting, you're just going to be saying words. You're not going to know why you have to say them. And if you otherwise know everything that you need to know about your character, then you can jump into those new pages with tons of conviction and really apply yourself to the narrative. And it will be successful in that way.
What do you think is going to happen when you move to arena stage? The show, the rules are that come opening night, that's the script you have for the rest of the time that you're performing it in Los Angeles.
Right.
But there's going to be a month off before you're up and running in previews in Washington, D.C. What expectations have you been given, if any, about how the play may change shape and form between the closing in Los Angeles and the previews in Washington, D.C. at the arena stage?
We haven't been given any explicit details regarding how the show might change from LA to DC. But the things that I can imply on my own are that I know that Julie Bowen is ending her run with us in LA and Amy Brenneman will take over. So there may be some changes here or there just to accommodate the change in actor. Additionally, I believe Arena Stage is a true proscenium theater. I don't think they have the thrust that we have in the Mark Taper. And that's I've only looked at like online seating chart type pictures. So I'm going to imagine some big staging changes might have to occur to accommodate their space. But the set itself, I know, was built for both spaces. So the actual set shouldn't really be affected, but the playing space downstage of the set will be adjusted probably. And who knows as far as dialogue and the script goes, like you said, we've got about a month between venues, and that allows Larissa to sit down with our director Michael and decide if there are things they want to tweak and change and improve on because a show can continue changing its entire life. It can evolve as long as every new production that comes up, someone can change the show as long as they get permissions to do so. They can adjust, they can invite Larissa in to rewrite something. Shows evolve and change over decades. So who's to say it can't change a lot in 3 months?
Well, and for anybody who's watching this interview, Amy Brenneman had been with the show, throughout its development stage. She was unable due to previous commitments to do the production in Los Angeles, which
Right.
is why Julie came in. It's not like everybody's beloved star from Modern Family can't cut it. It's just that she filled in when Amy wasn't available.
Right. And Julie was offered DC, but to my understanding is that she spent a lot of 2024 away from home and she just really wanted to stay home this year.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Um, you talked about, a lot of the physical comedy that you have to do. How much background did you have in the physical comedy that is in the play and that you in particular have to accomplish?
It's so interesting. I mean I've done a lot of musical theater all my life, so I've done a lot of physical activity on stage. This style of comedy is new to me, but I've always been super physical and daredevil-y, and I love stunts and tumbling gymnastics. I've always been very athletic in that way. And what was so funny to me is that, my character comes in later in the show, and then in the last bit of the show, I have the most physical movement, and Theo gets to do a lot throughout the show, but mine's all concentrated into this like one big scene, and it's actually been really fun for me to. I get to kind of relax for the first little bit, and then I just come in like fully charged, and we had a fight coordinator, an intimacy coordinator, and of course our director leading the way and helping us navigate all the slamming doors and what can come from, are you just hitting the nose and does it hurt here? Do you fall back and roll onto your back? Um, it was quite a fun several days of discovery and trying things out and changing things. And the reality too is with something like this, I feel very confident and I feel very capable of big, huge, sweeping moves like jumping, running, whatever. But some other actors in any production you're in might not feel as comfortable. So you have to be able to accommodate everyone's comfortability in those situations as well and really be a team player so that no one gets hurt, because that's the most important thing is safety.
Now, I have to say, when you said that you had a passion for tumbling, you're 6'2". I mean, that's not the average height for people who are good at tumbling.
Totally. My brother and I, we grew up with a trampoline. We were state champion divers in high school and middle school, and he went on to do it in college. And then I was a cheerleader in high school as well. And I tell you, it's just the fearlessness. Like I was like 7 years old at my brother's baseball game, and my friend Chelsea was a young gymnast growing up, and she is really tiny. She's like 5'1", and she could just flip across the soccer fields back and forth. And I was like, I want to do that. And of course, I was smaller then, but I would just throw my body and try it. And I threw myself enough that eventually got all the way over. And then I started diving and doing the trampoline and doing cheerleading, and all of that just helped build on those skills, and I think my fearlessness help get that done. And the reality is I haven't tumbled as much recently. I haven't had a need to, but if I can get into a gymnastics gym, it's such a fun way to just kind of let loose and see what my body's still capable of doing.
Or you could just go back into kinky boots and be an angel again, and then just put your body through that workout.
I was the backflip angel when I did that national tour, and we went to China with the show. But they wanted me to do the jump split at the Hollywood Bowl, and that caused injury. So we start to realize, ooh, our creaky joints don't don't keep up with us when we're in heels 8 shows a week.
You know, it's hard for me to have massive empathy for that when I'm more than twice your age. Um, we started talking about the idea that you don't know what to believe about any of these characters because they all present themselves in ways that they think is going to be beneficial to them. How important is faking it for you? I mean, whether personally or professionally, has faking it been a part of how you've found a way to navigate your own way through the world?
I think when I was quite young, I had just this need to succeed and perfect. And I've talked a lot about this in therapy and with my husband. And for me, my parents were both athletes. They were very encouraging. They wanted me to do well. And then I started doing really well, like in my cross country and in my diving. And it was really exciting to be a successful athlete in that way, or a successful student or whatever. But then when I got a little bit older and those races got a bit longer and I wasn't as fast, I wasn't winning anymore. And there's nothing I could do to fake it in that regard. You can't fake being a really fast runner or something because your body just won't do it if you're not trained for it. But I had this need, this kind of OCD to be, I think, just perfect and the best that I could be. And I think part of that was hiding my sexuality and my identity as a queer person, and hoping that if I was really, really good at this, that people wouldn't notice that. And the lessons that I've learned is that I don't think faking it is worthwhile in any regard at all. I think you have to be really true and authentic to yourself, because people can tell when you're faking it. I think people can't trust you when you're faking it. And I think people always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And if everyone who knows you thinks that you're faking it and you're inauthentic or you're lying or you're just making things up as you go, they're not going to want to be with you, work with you, help you on your journey. And I think if I can go into the world and present the most authentic energy that I can and be the real me, then I think that's going to be the best path forward.
I think that would be true for anybody. Of course, you do know on actors' headshots and resumes, there's that special skills section. And having read my share of them, I can't imagine all these actors have all those special skills.
My friend, she told me once, she was like, "Well, I got an audition for an archery commercial, and I guess I should take archery off my resume and replace it with lying because I cannot submit for that."
What's the best way for you to tell when someone is not being authentic or real with you?
I kind of have this philosophy in life, and some people think it's like very cynical, but one of my philosophies is that like people will always let you down, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Someone's going to, I don't know, cut you off in traffic. Your best friend's gonna forget to call you back. I mean, just anything, and it's gonna let you down a little bit. And if you can expect that sometimes, then it won't be as devastating when it occurs. And in that regard, I tend to believe the best in somebody. I am really fast to make friends with people. I will invite you into my circle right away. And I think that's really important to just make sure that you can harbor a space for people so they feel welcome and safe. And I think my goal is I hope that in doing so, people don't ever feel the need to fake it around me. But I think what becomes really clear is that if they are faking it, in my genuine my genuine what do I want to say, path toward friendship and getting to know them and wanting to be their friend and wanting to lift them up, I think there can often be people will often actually pull away from that a little bit closer because it kind of scares them that someone maybe is so genuinely interested in who they are and wanting to be their friend, and they're keep putting up this facade of I'm a cool guy, I'm a cool girl, whatever it is, and they can't keep up with it. And so instead of trying to keep up with it, they just kind of disappear. And I can see when someone is like trying to create more space or back away. And I think that might be like an indicator of what you're mentioning. But otherwise, I'm just kind of like, I'm me and you're you, and we can hang out and be friends or, not. But yeah, I think they maybe start to recognize, and then who knows if it's like a shame situation where they're like, oh, he's just really nice and keeps reaching out, and I keep blowing him off, and so and then I don't know, it naturally kind of fades away sometimes.
Well, and the nice thing about creating space for people so that they can, be part of your life is if they somehow disappoint you, you can always give them the boot.
Yeah, and I mean, but also like I don't have a problem with welcoming people back into my life either. I've had friends over the past few years that I stopped talking to for one reason or another. But if they came back and, genuinely, I felt that they were genuinely like apologetic or, taking accountability or something, I could welcome them back. I don't hold a grudge. I don't think putting energy into that is worth it in life. I think life's too short to hate people or feel too negatively about it. I think it's more important to put your energy into the communities and the people that you love and want to lift up, um, on a greater level in this country and on a really intimate level with the people around you in your circle of friends.
One other question that I want to ask you, Eric, is we have this whole idea of how we present ourselves, which is something we control on some levels, but how people receive us or what they think of us is not something that we can control.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering, as someone who is attractive, as you are, who participated in Mr. USA for Tennessee, which I hope you don't mind me bringing up, but it's on your website, so I figure that's fair game.
Yeah.
But I think that there are going to be people who make certain assumptions and have certain expectations of you. What do you think is your greatest asset in being able to get them to realize that their preconceived ideas are not things that accurately represent who you are?
I think that's a very thoughtful question. Thank you. That's what is like a pageant response right there. To be clear, I've only done one pageant. It was Mr. USA last year, and I had a really good time and met a lot of really, really great people. And I don't think I probably would do another one unless it was something international, because I just love the opportunity to explore the world and see other cultures and that kind of thing. But you know what I think I've recognized actually in my career on this note is that being a pretty face more often than not kind of gets in the way of people taking me seriously as an actor. I've done a few like showcases, and I've listed, commercials and modeling experience and this, that, and the other. And I've gotten responses from people that are like, "Oh, we're not looking for models who want to act." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, that's great because I'm an actor first. I've been pursuing this since I was quite young, and modeling is something that I was able to jump into in my late teens, early 20s, and make a little bit of a living off of that." But I think for me, what's been important is that I just keep showing up and I keep putting in the work. And I have this amazing acting coach, Susan Giosa, that I study with out in Santa Monica. And she, I think, single-handedly has helped whip me into shape in a way that she has said, "Eric, you are a good-looking person. You will be seen for leading role characters. And if you want to be taken seriously in that regard, then your craft has to be amazing." And I've worked really hard to show up for myself in that regard so that when I do go into an audition, they don't just see a pretty face, but they see someone who really cares, who has compassion for the character they're going out for, and really wants to offer the best of myself to the project because I want to uplift the work that they're trying to do and the work they're trying to cast in this regard as well. And so I just have to keep showing up. I know that my intentions are good, and I know that I've worked really hard for where I'm at, and I believe that I deserve the things that I'm getting because I've put in the work for it. And Matthew McConaughey once said in his book Green Lights, he said he comes across people all the time who say, they win an Academy Award and they go up on stage and they go, "I can't believe this is happening to me." And his rebuttal is, "Believe it. It's happening. You've worked hard for this. You're there for a reason." So without arrogance, I think one can accept the accolades they're collecting with humility and grace and be really grateful, but also understand the work they put into it and acknowledge that. And I do. I like to acknowledge that. And yeah, I'm just gonna keep showing up. You might see a pretty face, but behind that face, I think is really hard work and determination.